All right, so you've got that big meeting coming up, huh? And you want to sound like the smartest person in the room.
I can definitely work with that.
Yeah.
You sent over a ton of interesting business news this week.
Yeah, and no time to actually read it all. Let's cut to the chase. What are the need to know takeaways?
Well, it's interesting because a lot of it points to some really major shifts happening, especially in the tech world, and that obviously always has ripple effects everywhere else.
Right, because what happens in tech land never stays in tech land.
Exactly.
Okay, so first up, the Fed cuts interest rates again down to that 4.75%, 5% range. What's the significance there? I mean, it's not a huge drop.
Right, so it's not like suddenly everything's on sale.
Yeah, no Black Friday deals for the economy yet.
Not quite, but it ends the first cut we've seen in a while, which is significant. It shows you the Fed trying to walk this tightrope between, concerns about inflation and keeping the economy chugging along.
Right, because they don't want to slam the brakes on everything.
Exactly. And the interesting thing is, this move was completely expected by the markets.
So no one panicked.
Exactly. Which, historically speaking, rate cuts like this can actually be good for stocks
Unless.
unless a recession hits. So that's the big question mark everyone's watching for now. Is this a blip or a sign of bigger things to come?
Okay, so everyone hold on to their hats. Speaking of big moves, Google dodged a massive fine from the EU this week.
That they did.
While Microsoft went all in on themselves with this huge GE stock buyback program A&D, a dividend increase. So two very different strategies. What's the logic there?
Well, for Google, avoiding that $1.49 billion fine, that's a major victory for them. It shows they still have clout, even with all the regulatory heat they've been facing lately.
Right, like we're still Google.
Exactly. Now, Microsoft is interesting. A stock buyback, for those who don't know, is basically when a company buys back its own stock from the market. It's usually a sign they think their stock is undervalued and poised to go up.
Or a good investment.
Yeah. And then they sweeten the deal for investors even more by increasing their dividend. So put those two things together, and it definitely gives off this vibe of a company feeling very confident about their future.
And maybe trying to project that confidence too.
Absolutely. Perception is everything, right?
Totally. And speaking of the future, Microsoft also dropped $30 billion with a B on this new AI fund. And meanwhile, we have Amazon launching Amelia, their AI assistant, specifically for sellers on their platform. I mean, are we on the verge of some kind of AI takeover here?
Okay, well, let's not get ahead of ourselves.
No Terminator scenarios yet.
Not just yet. But in all seriousness, these are really strategic moves. Microsoft is clearly aiming to be a major player, if not the player, in AI infrastructure. That's basically the foundation on which all other AI is built.
The picks and shovels of the gold rush.
Exactly. So it's a very strategic position to be in. Now, Amazon's Amelia, that's interesting because it shows you how this technology is filtering down to everyday business tasks. For now, it's all about helping sellers on Amazon, manage their accounts and data more efficiently.
So less world domination, more like, let me take care of that spreadsheet for you.
For now, at least. But it gives you a taste of what's to come, right? AI becoming more and more integrated into our daily professional lives.
Yeah. And maybe eventually writing these podcast scripts.
Maybe.
Okay, moving on. We've got Meta partnering with the eyewear giant EssilorLuxottica. Are we really supposed to believe that people want to wear computers on their faces? Even if they are stylish.
Well, this partnership isn't just some random tech trend.
Yeah.
EssilorLuxottica knows eyewear, right? That's their bread and butter. And Meta obviously knows tech. So you put those two together, and it feels like a very calculated long-term play. They're basically saying, we think smart glasses are going to be huge one day.
Interesting. So are you buying a pair?
Ask me in a year.
Fair enough. Okay, next up, Nike is getting a new CEO after their longtime leader steps down. What does a leadership change like that mean for a brand like Nike?
It's huge. Anytime you have a company, especially one as iconic as Nike, going through a major leadership transition like that, it's a big deal. And it seems like the market agrees Nike's stock actually went up after the announcement. I think there's a sense of, optimism, maybe some excitement to see what a new CEO will do, what new direction they'll take things in.
Yeah, fresh blood. Speaking of fresh blood, Intel's raking in $3.5 billion from the U.S. government to make chips for the military. Does this mean we're about to have some super high-tech fighter jets, or what?
I think it goes beyond just having the fanciest tech for the military. This is about national security in a bigger way. The U.S. wants to be less reliant on other countries for its chip supply.
Yeah, the supply chains have been a mess lately.
Exactly. And for Intel, this is obviously a great deal, right? big government contract, that's never a bad thing.
Yeah.
But what I also found interesting is that they're considering spinning off their foundry business.
Their foundry business.
Yeah, so a foundry is basically a factory that makes chips, but for other companies. If Intel goes through with that, it could be a huge deal for them and the whole industry, actually. Gives them a lot more flexibility.
Okay, so much to think about. So we covered a lot of ground here, from the Fed to AI to smart glasses. What's your big takeaway from all of this? What's the headline?
I think the big takeaway is that we are seeing a power shift. Tech companies are no longer just disrupting industries. They are becoming the foundation of the entire global market. And those who control that foundation, those who control things like AI infrastructure, for example.
They're the ones calling the shots.
In a lot of ways, yeah.
Wow. There you go, listener. Go wow them at that meeting.
They won't know what hit them.
Exactly. And for everyone listening, this week really showed how interconnected everything is, right?
Sure.
So here's a thought. What seemingly small thing is happening right now that's going to be a huge deal a year or two down the line? What should we be paying attention to that's not making headlines yet? Something to ponder. Until next time.